If you suffer a data breach and nobody is upset or loses any money as a result, can they still sue you? Well, yes, according to a recent Federal Court of Appeal judgment in Germany. In this edition of the Privacy Corner, I'll be looking at why that case could have a big impact on data breach litigation, and also Meta's latest attempt at satisfying European regulators with its consent or pay policy, and a new EU law entered into the official journal today that could have implications for thousands of software and hardware developers. A big thank you to Privado AI for their support, and a quick plug for their latest report that looks at website compliance across the US and EU, and found that around 3/4 of websites do not meet the relevant legal requirements in their jurisdictions. A statistic that will not be surprising to many privacy professionals, but a very interesting report nonetheless. More details in the newsletter that I will link down below. So first up, this German federal court case. This is about non-material damages and whether you can claim them for mere loss of control of personal data. So it goes back to 2021 with a data scraping incident that affected Facebook. They've already been penalised for this by the Irish DPC, but this is a court claim by a German individual. And basically, it made it possible to link Facebook profiles with phone numbers, so ostensibly private phone numbers, and that of course reveals people's user ID, first and last name, place of work, and gender. So the person bringing this case initially brought it because of the irritation he felt after experiencing or being caught up in this data breach. But the court, well, he had mixed success at the first and second instance. The federal court went quite far in approving one important part of this person's claim. So the question is, do you have to have suffered distress or monetary loss or some other form of damage in order to bring a claim under Article 82 of the GDPR? And the court said no, mere loss of control of your personal data is enough to establish non-material damage under the GDPR and bring a private claim against a controller or processor in court. Now, this is a little bit of a contentious point. The fact that you've experienced a data breach or fallen victim to a breach can, of course, and often will, lead to distress. But for some people, like myself, to be honest, they might not experience distress at the mere incident of a data breach such as the one in question. There was a similar case in the UK called Lloyd and Google, where the court studied similar facts and came to the opposite conclusion. Loss of control is not enough to bring, in this case, a class action case under the GDPR. The problem here in the UK claim was that if you have a group of litigants, plaintiffs or complainants or claimants, not all of them will experience a data breach in the same way. You might have relatively untroubled people like myself who don't really care that much about, in this case, it was Chrome's use of browser data. And you might have people who are very upset by it and do experience distress. You can't say the same type of damage applies across the entire class. So this case in the UK ruled out the kind of opt-out mass claim that we see in jurisdictions like the US, where you are opted into a class action by default. Now, this German case suggests that businesses could be liable for large mass claims under the GDPR, even if there's been no subsequent misuse of data that has been breached, and even if no one says they were distressed by it or lost money or any other sort of damage. So, very important case, not completely wrapped up yet in Germany, but definitely one to watch. Next up, Meta has implemented its latest attempt at a consent or pay policy. And this one involves a third tier where ads will play for a few seconds and you won't be allowed to skip them. So we'll have the paid tier, which they are making cheaper. The second free tier, which will be the full personalized advertising experience. So all the profiling and tracking that goes along with being on Facebook. And this third tier, which will involve unskippable ads based on less personal data. So I think it's basic profile information, age, name, gender, that kind of stuff. So this has been going on quite a long time, and it's probably not going to be settled anytime soon. This new attempt at consent or pay appears to be a response to the EDPB's opinion on consent or pay among large online platforms, a group of companies that they kind of invented to implicitly get at Facebook. But I initially thought the EDPB won't be happy with this. It seems like Facebook's kind of trying to annoy people into consenting, and that was very much the take of Noib and the Max Schrems campaign group, who are leading the charge against this consent or pay stuff in Meta at least, who said that they are trying to annoy people into consenting, and they want their ads to be less illegal but much more annoying. But the EDPB came out on LinkedIn with a statement from Anna Talus, the chair, that was actually quite warm in response to this new idea. Less invasive ads are great news, the EDPB says, and they welcome the fact that an important platform announces it will offer a new choice for free with less detailed profiling for advertising. Very much a preliminary statement, a first response from the EDPB, not an official response, but surprising in its tone, I think. They have yet to properly assess this new model, but it kind of sounds like they might be backing down. And they're in a slightly difficult position because the CJEU did suggest in passing that Facebook might be able to charge a fee for a less invasive kind of option. And, well, it might be that this saga soon comes to a close. It will probably reach the CJEU again first, but an interesting development. Finally, the Cyber Resilience Act is on few people's radars, but I wrote about this a couple of years ago when it was proposed by the Commission, and I think it could have quite a big impact on quite a few companies. This is a new regulation adopted into the official journal today, and it will take effect in a couple of years, we'll see later. So this applies to all products with digital elements, meaning that they can be connected to a network, either physically or kind of logically via the internet. And they're remote data processing solutions. So the design and development by the manufacturer, there are implications for distributors and importers, a bit like the AI Act. It also distinguishes certain important products with digital elements. So that's ID management systems, browsers, password managers, VPNs, antivirus software, and hypervisors and virtual OSs, microprocessors and microcontrollers, and also critical products with digital elements. So these are smart meters and certain security components. So these are the kind of specialist classes of product, but it applies very broadly, as noticed. Any product with digital elements basically will be covered by this regulation, and it imposes essentially a data security and protection by design requirement across the board. So you must develop your products with an appropriate level of cybersecurity in mind. So it's a bit like an Article 25 GDPR type thing, but for cybersecurity. And you mustn't release it with exploitable vulnerabilities. And there are also reporting obligations both to users and to the authorities. So it will start kicking in from September 26, but most obligations from December 2027. And there are some pretty big fines attached, up to 15 million euros or 2.5% of worldwide annual turnover. So a very significant regulation that has gone under the radar a bit, but is now official. So if you are covered, then do make sure you read up on it. Thank you so much for your time. That's it from me this week. Thank you, as always, to Privado AI. Do check out their latest report, and I'll see you next time.